Hi, I'm Adrian. I'm a Northwood based hypnotherapist in London, and today's video I'd like to share with you a therapeutic concept that looks at how our thinking, our feeling and our behaviours are all interlinked and how they all influence each other. This is called the Cognitive Triangle, and I hope you find this video useful. The Cognitive Triangle is a concept that looks at the relationship between our thinking, our feeling and our behaviour. It comes from CBT, or Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, which is a therapeutic modality often used in the treatment of anxiety and depression. The Cognitive Triangle aims to illustrate how our thinking, our feelings and behaviours are all interlinked. So if we were to experience disharmony in our thinking, that would inevitably affect our feeling. Our feeling would then affect our behaviour, and our behaviour would then reinforce our negative thinking. This is why we can find ourselves trapped inside negative cycles of behaviour, for example, smoking or sabotaging relationships. So let's assume we have a client who presents with a fear of dogs. They see a dog and they think it is scary because they feel fear. This fear causes them to run away. This is their behaviour. Their behaviour is keeping them safe. So therefore the behaviour then reinforces the negative thinking. Now let's assume that our client is encouraged little by little to approach a dog and maybe even pat one on the head. Soon they'll realise that there is no harm, and therefore their thinking and their feeling can now change based on how they're now behaving. Suddenly approaching a dog is going to seem much less traumatic. However, these negative behavioural loops can affect us much more perniciously, especially if they become the bedrock of avoidant behaviours. We may then begin to avoid life-enhancing opportunities such as job interviews or even relationships. So to use a more dramatic example, let's assume that someone has very deep-rooted self-esteem problems. They're convinced that everybody hates them. This belief could cause them to avoid social situations altogether. Or perhaps if they do venture into social situations, there's a danger that they could misinterpret other people's behaviour towards them as being more antagonistic than it really is. So for example, if someone bumps into you at a party, you might think, what's that guy's problem? Or you might imagine that somebody's giving you a funny look. We may begin to behave in one of two ways in these situations. One, we might become more aggressive at the imagined slight against us, because we're sick of thinking that everyone's always mistreating us. Or two, we might avoid social situations altogether because we've already reinforced the negative thinking that everybody hates us, people are always mistreating me. This can then escalate our defensive and avoidant behaviours, which will then further diminish our overall enjoyment of life. So how does this help? Each point of the cognitive triangle can be used and tweaked to positively affect the other two. So in our earlier example of the person who is afraid of a dog, changing their behaviour towards the dog can then change their thinking and their feeling towards dogs in general. Or other situations, just changing your thinking about something will then change your behaviour, which will then change your feeling. This allows us to build resilience over time so that we can respond appropriately in stressful situations without triggering our fight or flight response. This is the basis of ERP therapy, or exposure response therapy, which is often used to treat the compulsions of clients with OCD. Sometimes just explaining the theory of the cognitive triangle to a client is enough to give them a little insight into their behaviours. This gives them an opportunity to then begin to rectify things. After time, new ways of thinking, feeling and behaviour can become habit, replacing the old unhelpful ways of before. It will take time, but eventually a client can see that they have a choice of how they behave, think or feel in what were once triggering situations. And this allows them to live more in line with who and how they would rather be. So if you find yourself in a situation in life where you're feeling stuck or you're trapped in a negative cycle of behaviour, it can be quite interesting to change one of the points of the cognitive triangle, changing the thinking, your feeling or behaviour, and just noticing how quickly that can actually elicit different and usually better results. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it in some way interesting. If you did, please consider giving the video a thumbs up, or feel very welcome to subscribe to this channel where I'll be uploading future videos on psychology, philosophy and mindset. Thank you very much for watching.